You're using the Canadian Treasury to buy yourself political ads that you should be paying with money that you collected.
Got some more conflicts of interest. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we have not one, but two Liberals caught in conflicts of interest, enriching themselves off the backs of taxpayers because, well, that's what Liberals do. We also got a panel here on CTV talking about Mark Carney using taxpayer money, changing the rules to be able to promote his own brand, Build Canada Strong, with our tax dollars. Spoiler alert, even the leftists don't like it. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off right on the Government of Canada website. This is the China travel advice, and, well, exercise a high degree of caution. Updated January 12th, so just a couple of days ago. But this is who Mark Carney wants us to get all cushy with. Moving ahead, we've got Trudeau's former defense minister launches tech startup that could bolster Arctic sovereignty. Now, the real kicker with this, we've got Conservative Senator Denise Batters posting this. Hello, cooling off period, aka he's not allowed to do this. He has to have a cooling off period before he's allowed to start a business that's directly related to, well, his former job. Sajjan was the Liberal government cabinet minister for emergency preparedness only 10 months ago. Now he wants to start up a business that's related to Arctic sovereignty and defense. Are you kidding me? This is a direct conflict of interest. These Liberals who all breaking the law should be thrown in jail. Moving ahead, we've got this bombshell here out of Blacklock's reporter. Senator's firm wins Fed loan. Liberal appointee Senator Colin Deacon out of Nova Scotia breached conflict rules as founding shareholder of a company that solicited a federal loan. The Senate ethics officer granted Deacon a waiver. This is preposterous. It says, my view is your situation falls under the exception, wrote the ethics officer. The benefit of a Crown Bank loan to Deacon's company was not obvious, he said. Deacon is the founder of Blue Light Analytics, Inc., a Halifax dental equipment supplier incorporated in 2009. The senator and his wife hold 10.7% shares in the firm. He has a direct conflict of interest here, and the ethics commissioner offered a waiver for this. Like, you can't make this stuff up. Blue Light successfully applied for a loan with the Business Development Bank. Neither Deacon nor the Senate Ethics Commissioner disclosed the size of the loan. The Ethics and Conflict of Interest Code forbids senators from holding any interest in a company that benefits from the business arrangement with a federal agency. Goes on to say a senator shall not have any interest in a partnership or private corporation that derives a benefit directly or indirectly from a contract, subcontract, or other business arrangement with the Government of Canada. And it goes on to say here, Blacklocks in 2019 reported Deacon, while a senator remained a Blue Light director, at the same time the company successfully applied for $119,000 in National Research Council grants. Deacon denied any conflict. This is ridiculous. He sat on the board as a director and received money from the government. And I looked these guys up. Look how much money they've been getting. Blue Light Analytics, $49,900. We've got 30 grand. We've got 15 grand, 31 grand, 135 grand, 202, $452,000, 50,000, 50,000, 130,000. Going over to page 2, 116,000, 50,000, 50, 124, $500,000, 500, 500, 20,000. It just goes on and on and on. How many pages do we have here? 30,000, 44,000, 37, 359,000, and $107,000. 2.5 pages of grants from Canadian taxpayers, millions of taxpayers' dollars. This guy sat on the board while getting these contracts, owns 10% of this company. You wouldn't expect anything else from a Liberal appointed senator here. And they claim, well, I wasn't actively running the business day to day. It's like this guy has access to ministers. He has access to people that normal people do not have access to, which can inflate the value of this company. Not to mention these contracts will increase the value of the company. If you're getting millions of dollars every single year from taxpayers, it makes a company seem a lot more stable and not likely to go bankrupt. Thus, just in general, keeping it a more stable investment for people to want to buy into. This is ridiculous. Moving ahead, we've got this one from Larry Brock. Breaking: a repeat offender with 7 driving prohibitions was caught driving a stolen vehicle. Of course he was. Why not? Charged with stolen property, breaching release, street candy, and more. This is what catch and release looks like. Thank you to the Peel Regional Police for taking him off the road. Canadians deserve jail, not bail. What a friendly looking character here. Man out on release and on 7 driving prohibition orders. Arrested after vehicle theft. 7. Perhaps this guy should never drive a vehicle in Canada ever again. Maybe we should try that. Moving ahead, we've got a panel on CTV here talking about Mark Carney changing the rules for spending advertising money. Essentially, he can use our taxpayer money to promote the Liberal brand now, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Welcome back to Power Play. There may be an unintentional throw throwback theme to today's front bench panels. First, it was reflecting back on a decade of China policy. Now, government advertising. After the Harper government spent $100 million public dollars promoting their economic action plan, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tightened government advertising rules to limit partisan content. But a new Carney government ad has been raising eyebrows for its throwback vibes. Listen to this.
It's time to build big again with Canadian workers, steel, lumber, and technology. We'll be our own best customer, sell more to the world, and take control of our future. It's time to build strong. A message from the Government of Canada.
This was all first reported by the Toronto Star, and it turns out that the $3 million ad campaign was made possible by some recent policy changes to allow for more partisan language in government ads. The Privy Council office writing to us and insisting in part Canada's government has taken responsible measures to streamline and simplify this process, as the previous policy was too slow and duplicative for the Times, which can leave Canadians with delayed access to critical information. The updated policy, the statement goes on to say, maintains robust review processes that ensure campaigns present information clearly and factually while improving review timelines. Our front bench.
Why this is happening is the Liberals are unable to raise the amount of money they need to fight back against Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. So instead, they're just going to loot taxpayers' money and use that to campaign for themselves.
Corey, I was joking earlier today. This government must listen to the curse of politics and watch our strategy session on Sunday, because I don't think there's something you and Scott Reed have talked about more than how the rule change really was to the detriment of the Trudeau government. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think if you're looking at things that killed the political career of Justin Trudeau and took that government under his leadership down to, what was it, like 17, 18%. It's the inability to communicate sometimes complicated bits of government policy to people in more simple terms. The carbon tax, consumer carbon tax, and the rebate process, like they got absolutely slayed when it came to communications because the Conservative Party were able to articulate a very clear, simple message in advertising around that policy, one that I happen to agree with, by the way. I think the Conservatives were on the side of the Angels in terms of that framing of that issue. But what I would say is political malpractice on the part of the Liberal government is not doing any basic communications in terms of advertising to actually articulate that to Canadians. Like, do you think people are literally watching Question Period and reading government press releases? Is that how you expect to get information out? You're going to log on to, a Government of Canada website and read up on complicated policy? No, they're going to watch TV and listen to radio and do all the things that normal people do, read the internet. And either you make that information available to them in a way that's, easily consumable, or you're going to be defined by your opponents who do.
Most Canadians are not watching this stuff. They're getting little clips on TikTok or on Instagram. That's about it. Or they see stuff on CBC or CTV and they keep seeing David Cochrane saying, oh, Donald Trump is the worst person ever. Pierre Poilievre is the worst person ever. Saying everything Donald Trump is bad, saying everything that Pierre Poilievre is doing is bad. And that's what Canadians start to think. It's propaganda.
That notion of unilateral disarmament to a degree that I've not seen by an elected government in the history of this country is the path that the Trudeau government took. And if you want to see where that lands you, look at what those poll results look like at the end. It's it's certain death. And I would say if another view of how to do that, take a look at the Ford government. They're doing quite well, thank you very much, on their third term in office. And
the Ford government, give me a break. There's no real competition in Ontario. That's why. Doug Ford is a buffoon, and I believe he's being investigated. One of his ministers is, for sure.
And they do a heck of a lot of that sort of advertising. One works, the other doesn't. It's good for the government, I suppose, that they are catching up with the realities of life in the modern media environment.
In terms, Brian, of what's palatable to Canadians, does it matter what the ads are about? Like, if it had been explaining the rebate for the carbon tax is one thing, talking about like, here's our strategy to build big, like in sort of very general terms, is that a different thing?
Well, first off, let me just say that when you brought up the political ad campaign, I figured that Corey would be the one amongst us that had the most to say about it. So that's good that we got that in. and look, lots of good points. So I don't know. I mean, I think the idea of having a political figure in a government ad is ridiculous, and that I come to understand is still the case, that you can't have someone do that. Having a tagline like "Build Strong," I just don't know if that's going to give you any real political advantage. I mean, I tend to think that that's just not the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just doesn't feel like something that is some big asset for the government to have a slogan that is similar, or pretty much the same slogan as they had in a campaign. The other thing is I would say that the idea.
So on to that point there, while it may not feel like it's going to do anything, it's just like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Hershey's or whatever. Pick a big company that has a tagline that they just keep hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering, and eventually you can't forget it. Mark Carney wants to hammer home, build Canada strong, Canada getting strong, Canada being strong. He wants that word strong associated with him, and he's going to spend millions of taxpayers' dollars to do it. So it will have an effect. It's just not one that would be easily measurable.
That you can't talk about one of the most important signature pieces of your government that has turned into one of the most hot potato political conversations, as Corey pointed out, with the price on carbon pollution. Corey, the idea of
oh,
not
is that
being
what it's called?
Yeah. Well, your point is right in there at the heart of that. So I think not being able to explain that in any way or shape or form because of this legislation or the way it was structured, I think is ridiculous as well. So I think something in the middle has to be done. And last point I'll make is, again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have the memory that all of you have. And Vash, you've been following this for so long, but I believe, and Tom, you would have been there, back in the day, this was brought in to kind of as a response to Harper and his sort of major investments, right, in government ads that resembled sort of messaging for the Conservatives. So probably went a little draconian on the response because it was already sort of political. So it makes sense to revise and review and make it a little more for modern times.
So let's just recap here. A liberal here is saying that this is ridiculous what the government's doing.
It was entirely a promise made by Trudeau, Tom, as you know, based on a complaint that they had leveraged as members of the opposition during that time.
Right. So let's stick with the example that we all agree on, which is the consumer-facing carbon tax came up big in Atlantic Canada with regard to heating oil. There was nothing to stop the government from talking to Canadians about that. If you look at the policy, they could have gone to the panel that they constructed and say, we're simply going to inform people, here's the law, here are the regs, there's a rebate check going out. We won't debate on what percentage of families. Here's the percentage of the rebate check, and it's to cancel the carbon tax for a lot of people. That's information. What we're getting here is not information. This is flag-waving, standard-bearing for the Liberal Party of Mark Carney. And by the way, I think that Mark Carney is, for example, with his trip to China, he's been going around the world. He's been working tirelessly. I'm not taking anything away from Mark Carney, the politician, the Prime Minister of Canada. What I am saying is that
Tom Mulcair is so delusional about Mark Carney. He just loves him so much. He's flying around the world, jet setting, signing all these major trade deals, except nothing's coming back to Canada. And he just mentioned the home heating oil and that whole nonsense. I thought I'd just bring this up because someone left a comment on an old video, and that reminded me of this, which I showed on the channel a while ago, Trane Technologies. So this is a company that is wrapped in with Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau pushing the heat pumps. We've got Trane heat pumps here on the chart, and we can see Brookfield put in $1.45 million invested in Trane, and now it's $83 million. I have to keep updating this. I should put the years on here as we look at this. And this is wrapped in with Schneider Electric, and this is a whole other story here. But Justin Trudeau heavily pushing those heat pumps, and Brookfield working with Trane. Here's the stock from the past 5 years. So Justin Trudeau was pushing that, I believe it was in October of 2024, so it would have been right here. And then since then, I mean, this thing has just gone to the moon, and it's come down a little bit since, but I mean, we're talking a difference of around $200 all the way up to 457. Now it's 391, nearly doubled. Anyways, back to this panel here. Tom Mulcair was blubbering, gushing all over Mark Carney. Well, listen to this. He doesn't agree with these ad rules.
Canadian taxpayers should not take the place of people who contribute to political parties. In Canada, unlike the United States, we don't allow unions, we don't allow corporations to give money to political parties. They have to raise it themselves. Then they can have ads tooting their own horn and saying who they are. When you have an ad that says, we have a new program for dental care, here are the age groups, here's the information, here's how you access it, that's just government information. When you have the flag waving, when you have the pictures, when you have the themes from the campaign, when you have the exact wording from the campaign, You're using the Canadian Treasury to buy yourself political ads that you should be paying with money that you collected. The Conservative Party of Canada sits on a big pile of cash because they're very good at respecting the rules and going after people and wringing out the very last dollar from them, and they can afford to have ads. That's why they had ads attacking Trudeau. If it's possible for Carney, because the Liberals are not very good at fundraising, they don't spend a lot of time doing it, and they're in power so often, they just say, hey, we've got the Treasury. We can access that for our own ads. There's something fundamentally wrong in our democracy. We're skewing the rules in favor of the governing party. That's why Trudeau went after it. But I will concede one point to Corey. It was self-inflicted by Trudeau. He was still so angry at Harper, he brought in a rule that wound up shooting him in the foot. But there's no reason, and I think that Brian's got this exactly right. There's no reason not to have something in the middle where you say, there are tough rules, you have to respect them, but yes, you can communicate with Canadians. Nobody's going to argue with that. These are political ads being paid with taxpayers' money by the Liberal Party of Canada, and that's wrong.
It's quite something having Tom Mulcair, a guy who loves Mark Carney, criticize him so badly on this.
I've got just 30 seconds left. I'm sorry, Corey. I apologize. I got to give 30 seconds to Benzie because he hasn't had a comment. I'm so sorry. The segment is over after that.
All I would say, Vashi, all I would say is that the exact same, Doug Ford is doing exactly the same thing. He has watered down the rules, the political advertising rules in Ontario that were in place under Kathleen Wynne, and Kathleen Wynne's Liberals had watered down the rules that were in place under Premier Dalton McGuinty's Liberals because he overcorrected just as Justin Trudeau did so that he couldn't, when McGuinty's party was in power in Ontario, they couldn't have an ad with the color red in it. They wanted to do one with red reflectors and they wouldn't let the Auditor General said, no, that's too partisan because red is the Liberal color. So Brian and Tom are right. It's ridiculous if you overdo it, but it's also it shouldn't. When you see Canada Strong as a government slogan, which is also the Liberal slogan, or Protect Ontario as the Progressive Conservatives government's slogan, which was also their campaign slogan, there is a real blurring of the lines between government advertising and political advertising.
This is funny. Corey wanted to chime in there instead. Rob Benzie taking the opportunity to take a jab at Corey, and he's also in agreement that this is ridiculous what Carney's doing here. What's interesting about this is if you ask most conservatives, you look on X, people talking about this, most conservatives are not in favor of what Carney's just done here, but obviously Corey Tanecki likes it because he's been doing this with Doug Ford in his campaign in Ontario. Out of this panel, though, we've got a Liberal, an NDP, and a Liberal who don't like what Mark Carney just did here with pushing more partisan language into ads paid by taxpayers, so it says a lot.